The massive alien ships appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. They came without warning, their dark shapes blocking out the sun over every major city on Earth. The world stopped and watched as these vessels, each one bigger than the largest human skyscraper, hung silently in the sky. Captain Ta Jin stood at the window of the Seoul Military Command Center, his hands clasped behind his back. At 42, he had spent most of his life training in combat, both modern and traditional, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Sir, you need to see this," called out Lieutenant Kim, his voice shaking. "They're broadcasting something." Every screen in the command center suddenly lit up with the image of a woman. She looked almost human, except for her silver skin and eyes that glowed like stars. She wore what appeared to be battle armor made of a material that shifted colors like oil on water. "People of Earth," she said in perfect English, her voice carrying a musical tone that seemed too beautiful to be natural. "I am Queen Neri of the Stellar Empire. Your planet now belongs to us." Tai Jin watched as the alien queen's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We have studied your weapons, your defenses, and your so-called fighters. They amuse us greatly." She laughed, the sound like crystal bells in the wind. "Your most advanced aircraft would not survive 10 seconds against even our smallest scout ship." The room erupted in angry mutters. Ta Jin remained silent, studying the queen's face, her movements, the way she carried herself. Years of martial arts had taught him that every opponent had a weakness, even alien ones. "You have 24 hours to surrender," Queen Neri continued. "After that, we will begin taking what we want by force. Try to fight if you wish. It will be entertaining." The broadcast cut off, leaving the command center in chaos. Phones rang, officers shouted orders, and somewhere in the distance, air raid sirens began to wail. "Captain Ta Jin," called out General Sun Ho, his voice cutting through the noise. "The United Earth Defense Council is meeting in 30 minutes. You're coming with me." As they hurried through the corridors, Ta Jin's mind was already working. "Sir," he said, "did you notice how the queen moved?" The general gave him a strange look. "What about it?" "She's a fighter," Ta Jin explained. "The way she stands, how she holds herself, it's like watching a tiger. Their species values combat, personal combat." They entered the underground bunker, where screens showed military leaders from around the world. Some looked scared, others angry, but all wore the same expression of determination. "They're technologically advanced," a Russian general was saying. "But we can't just give up. We must try our nuclear weapons and risk them retaliating with something worse." Someone else argued. Ta Jin stepped forward. "If I may," he said, his voice quiet but firm, "I think we're looking at this the wrong way." All eyes turned to him. He pulled up the recording of the Queen's broadcast, freezing it on her face. "Look at her armor. It's not ceremonial. Those are battle scars. And the way she mocked our fighters, she's not just insulting our technology. She's insulting our combat ability, our warrior spirit." "What are you suggesting, Captain?" asked the council head. "I'm suggesting that somewhere in their history, their species evolved as warriors. They probably fought their way across the stars. They don't just want our planet. They want to prove they're better fighters than us." Haiyun, the chief military scientist, spoke up from her screen. Her eyes were bright with understanding. "So if we could somehow challenge them on those terms." "Exactly," Ta Jin nodded. "We need to show them that humans know how to fight. Really fight. Not just with machines and weapons, but with skill and spirit." The room fell silent as his words sank in. General Sun Ho was the first to speak. "It's risky. Crazy even. But right now, crazy might be all we have." Outside, the alien ships still hung in the sky like dark clouds before a storm. But for the first time since they appeared, a small spark of hope flickered in the command center. Sometimes, Ta Jin thought, the best way to win a fight was to change the rules of engagement, and he was very, very good at fighting. 6 hours after Queen Neri's ultimatum, Earth launched its first attack. Fighter jets from every major military power filled the skies, their missiles aimed at the alien ships. Tajin watched from the command center as hundreds of bright streaks shot toward the massive vessels. Not a single missile hit its target. How disappointing. Queen Neri's voice echoed through all communication channels. Is this really the best Earth can offer? Her ships hadn't even activated their weapons. The missiles simply disappeared about 10 meters from the hulls, dissolving into sparkles of light. He-Yun burst into the command center, her lab coat flying behind her. Captain Tajin, I need you to see something. She ran to a computer and pulled up readings from the failed attack. Look at these energy patterns. They're shields. They're not just blocking our weapons, they're absorbing them. Tajin leaned closer to the screen, his mind racing. Like when you redirect an opponent's energy in martial arts, he muttered. Then louder, He-Yun, what if we think about this like a fight between two people? She looked at him curiously. What do you mean? In a real fight, if someone's blocking all your attacks the same way, you change your approach. You find patterns. Weaknesses. He pointed to the energy readings. Their shields have to follow some kind of pattern. He-Yun's eyes lit up. Yes, and if we can understand that pattern. She quickly typed some calculations. It's like a rhythm. Their defense has a rhythm to it. Their excitement was interrupted by alarms. On the main screen, one of Queen Neri's smaller ships was descending toward a military base in Japan. Its weapon systems hummed to life, glowing with a soft purple light. Now, the Queen's voice rang out. Let me show you how real warriors fight. The blast that followed wasn't an explosion. It was more like watching paper burn. The entire base simply dissolved, leaving nothing but smooth, glassy ground behind. No smoke, no fire, just nothing. The command center fell silent. General Sunho slammed his fist on the table. We have to do something. We can't just let them. Wait, Tajin interrupted, studying the footage. He-Yun, play that back. Slow it down. They watched frame by frame as the alien weapon fired. Just before the blast, there was a slight shimmer in the air around the ship. There. Tajin pointed. Their shields went down for a split second when they fired. They can't attack and defend at the same time. He-Yun was already typing furiously. Yes, the energy pattern changes right before they fire. It's like a fighter who has to lower their guard to throw a punch. How does this help us? General Sunho asked. We still can't get past their shields. Tajin smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. No, but now we know they have to choose between attacking and defending. In martial arts, that's called a fundamental weakness. He turned to He-Yun. How fast can you build me a suit? Something that combines our best combat technology with what we've learned about their energy patterns. A suit, she asked. What are you planning? Queen Neri wants to see how humans fight. Tajin's eyes hardened with determination. Then let's show her. Not with missiles and jets, but up close and personal, where skill matters more than technology. He-Yun thought for a moment, then nodded. Give me 48 hours. I've been working on something that might help, a way to detect and maybe even mimic their energy patterns. You have 24, General Sunho cut in. That's all the time we have left. As if to emphasize his point, another alien blast lit up the horizon, turning another military installation into glass. Queen Neri's laughter echoed through the speakers again, but this time it didn't sound as confident. There was an edge to it, like she was waiting for something more. You're not bored yet, are you humans? She taunted. I expected at least a little challenge from your warriors. Tajin looked at He-Yun. Let's give her what she wants, but not in the way she expects. He-Yun nodded and hurried back to her lab. As she left, Tajin turned back to the screen showing the alien ships. Soon, very soon, Queen Neri would learn that humans had more than one way to fight, and some of them were very, very old. He-Yun hadn't slept in 20 hours, but her hands were steady as she made the final adjustments to the combat suit. The lab around her was littered with empty coffee cups and torn-apart alien tech, pieces they'd managed to salvage from smaller ships that had landed. "Try it now," she called out to Ta Jin, who stood in the testing chamber wearing what looked like a sleek, black martial arts uniform with thin lines of blue light running through it. Ta Jin took a deep breath and moved through a basic fighting form. The suit followed his movements perfectly, humming softly. As he punched the air, blue energy rippled around his fist in a pattern very similar to the alien shields. "It's working," Hayden exclaimed, checking her readings. "The suit is copying their energy patterns, just like we hoped." Their celebration was cut short by another alarm. This time, 3 alien ships were descending toward Seoul. Queen Neri's voice filled the room again, but now she sounded almost bored. "Your time is almost up, humans. Is this truly all you can offer? Not even a single worthy battle?" Ta Jin looked at He-yun. "The suit's ready." She nodded, but bit her lip. "The shield copying works, but we haven't tested it against their weapons. If I'm wrong about the energy patterns—" "You're not wrong," Ta Jin said firmly. He walked to her and put a hand on her shoulder. "Trust your science." "I trust it." General Sun Ho burst into the lab. "They're targeting the city center. We need to evacuate." "No," Ta Jin interrupted. "This is our chance. Get me up there." Minutes later, Ta Jin stood on the roof of the tallest building in Seoul. The alien ships loomed above him, their weapons charging with that familiar purple glow. He activated his suit's communications. "Queen Neri," he called out. "You wanted to see how humans fight. Look down." There was a pause, then a shimmer in the air as some kind of viewing device focused on him. Queen Neri's laugh came through louder than ever. "One human, in some kind of primitive armor. This is your response." Ta Jin smiled. "This one human challenges you to watch closely." The nearest ship fired its weapon. Time seemed to slow down as Ta Jin moved. He shifted his weight, just like he had done thousands of times in training, and punched upward. The suit hummed loudly, and blue energy blazed around his fist. The alien blast hit his energy field and bounced back. The ship barely managed to raise its shields in time to absorb its own attack. There was silence across all channels. "How?" Queen Neri's voice had lost its mocking tone. "How did you copy our shield technology?" "We didn't copy it," Ta Jin said, moving into a fighting stance. "We understood it, like understanding an opponent's fighting style." He could almost feel her anger through the communication link. "Destroy him," she ordered. All 3 ships fired at once. Ta Jin moved like he was doing a dance he had practiced his whole life. Each blast was met with a precise movement. Each energy burst redirected back at the ships. The suit's power merged perfectly with his martial arts training, turning him into something Earth had never seen before, a warrior who could fight on equal terms with the stars. The ships pulled back, their weapons powering down. When Queen Neri spoke again, her voice held something new. "Respect. Who are you, human?" "I am Captain Ta Jin. And I am not alone." As he spoke, doors opened on buildings across the city. More figures in similar suits stepped out. He-yun had been building more than one. "Earth has millions of warriors like me. We've been fighting and learning for thousands of years. Not with fancy ships or powerful weapons, but with skill and spirit and determination." He looked up at the main ship, knowing she could see him clearly. "Still think we're primitive?" The silence that followed was heavy with tension. Finally, Queen Neri spoke again, but this time without any trace of mockery. "Perhaps we should talk." As the sun set over Seoul, the alien ships withdrew to a higher orbit. In the lab, He-yun was already working on more suits, her tired face lit with purpose. And Ta Jin knew that this was just the beginning. The real fight, the one that would decide Earth's fate, was still to come. But for the first time since the aliens arrived, They weren't laughing anymore. 3 days after the Battle of Seoul, Queen Neri's image appeared on screens worldwide again. But this time, she wasn't smiling. Her silver face was serious, her star-like eyes intense. "People of Earth," she said, her voice firm, "you have surprised us. In all our conquests across 12 galaxies, no species has ever turned our own shield technology against us." She paused, looking directly at the camera. "And no one has ever made us retreat." In the command center, Ta Jin stood with He Yun and General Sun Ho, watching carefully. The Queen's armor looked different today, more elaborate, with markings that seemed to glow. By the ancient laws of the Stellar Empire, when we find worthy opponents, we offer them a choice. Queen Neri's eyes flashed. "I challenge Earth's champion to single combat. One warrior against one warrior. If your champion wins, we will leave your solar system forever. If I win, Earth joins our empire, but as honored warriors, not as slaves." The command center erupted in argument. Some officers shouted that it was a trap, others that it was their best chance for peace. General Sun Ho raised his hands for silence. "Captain Ta Jin," he said quietly, "you're our expert on their warrior culture. What do you think?" Ta Jin studied the Queen's face on the screen. "She's telling the truth. Look at her armor. Those markings are ceremonial. This is a matter of honor for them." He Yun stepped forward, her face worried. "But Ta Jin, the combat suit isn't designed for prolonged one-on-one fighting. It can deflect their energy weapons, yes, but in close combat." She didn't finish the sentence. "How long would you need to modify it?" Ta Jin asked. "That's not the point." He Yun grabbed his arm. "This is suicide. The Queen has probably been fighting personal battles for hundreds of years. You've had the suit for 3 days." The room fell silent as Queen Neri continued. "You have 6 hours to accept or reject our challenge. Choose wisely." The screen went dark. General Sun Ho looked at Ta Jin. "The United Earth Defense Council is meeting in 10 minutes to discuss this. But we all know there's only one real choice for our champion, don't we?" Ta Jin nodded slowly. "Before I agree, I need 5 minutes alone with He Yun." In her lab, surrounded by the tools and technology that had helped save Seoul, He Yun finally let her professional calm crack. "You can't do this," she said, her voice shaking. "The suit isn't ready. You're not ready. We need more time." Ta Jin picked up one of the damaged alien devices they'd studied. "When I was learning martial arts, my master told me something important. He said the fighter who needs perfect conditions to win has already lost. This isn't a training match." He Yun slammed her hand on the table. "This is combat against an alien queen who has probably killed hundreds of champions from other worlds." "Exactly," Ta Jin said softly. "And that's why we're going to win." He Yun stopped, surprised. "What do you mean?" "She's used to being the strongest, the most advanced, just like their ships, their weapons." He smiled. "But you taught me something when you built this suit. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is understanding how your opponent thinks." He took her hand. "I need you to modify the suit. Not to make it stronger or more advanced. Make it simpler, more focused on redirecting energy than generating it. Can you do that?" He Yun looked at him for a long moment, then squared her shoulders. 6 hours, you said. I can do it in 4. When Ta Jin walked into the council meeting, his decision was already made. On the main screen, reports were coming in from around the world. People gathering in streets, in temples, in homes, all waiting to hear Earth's answer. "I accept the challenge," he said clearly. General Sun Ho nodded, looking both proud and worried. "May I ask why you seem so confident?" Ta Jin thought about all his years of training, about He Yun's brilliant adaptations of alien technology, about humanity's long history of facing seemingly impossible odds. "Because," he said, "the Queen made the same mistake she made when she first arrived. She's still underestimating us." As if in response, the alien ships above Earth shifted position. creating a giant ring in the sky. The arena for the coming battle was being prepared. In her lab, Hei-yun began her modifications with tears in her eyes, but determination in her heart. And somewhere up there, Queen Neri prepared for a fight she thought she couldn't lose. She was about to learn otherwise. 3 hours before the combat, Ta Jin sat in the empty training room of his old martial arts school. The wooden floors and mirrored walls were exactly as he remembered them. He had asked for this time alone, away from the military base and the constant buzz of preparation. The combat suit lay next to him, modified by Hei-yun's tireless work. It looked simpler now. The blue energy lines were fewer but brighter, and the material felt more like traditional fighting clothes than alien technology. His mind drifted back to 20 years ago, in this same room. Again, his master Jin Woo had shouted, "Power isn't about strength, Ta Jin. It's about understanding. Understanding yourself, understanding your opponent, understanding the flow of energy." Young Ta Jin had been frustrated that day. "But master, my opponent is twice my size. How can I win?" Jin Woo had smiled. "Size, technology, these are not what make a true warrior. Watch." His master had then demonstrated how a simple shift in stance could turn an opponent's strength against them. That lesson had stayed with Ta Jin all these years. The door opened quietly. Hei-yun walked in, carrying a tablet. "I thought I'd find you here," she said, sitting down beside him. "The Queen's ship just sent us data about the combat arena. They're creating a gravity-controlled platform between our atmosphere and space. The air will be Earth normal, but..." She hesitated. "But what?" "They're allowing energy weapons. The Queen will be using something like a sword made of pure energy." Ta Jin nodded calmly. "Good. Good." Hei-yun stared at him. "How is that good?" "Because it means she's still thinking like them. All power, all technology." He stood up and walked to the center of the room. "Watch." He moved through a simple martial arts form, one he had practiced thousands of times. Each step was precise, each movement flowing into the next. "In 30 years of training, I've learned that the most dangerous opponent isn't the strongest one. It's the one who can turn your strength against you." He turned to Hei-yun. "You proved that when you helped me redirect their shield energy." Hei-yun looked down at her tablet, then back at him. "There's something else you should know. I've been studying the Queen's previous combat records. They just released them." She showed him the screen. Dozens of battles, dozens of victories. Each one showed the Queen defeating opponents with overwhelming power and speed. "She's never lost," Hei-yun said quietly. "Not once in 300 years." Ta Jin smiled. "Then she's never learned from losing. That's her weakness." He picked up the modified suit and examined it. "You've made it exactly right. Not trying to match her power, but ready to redirect it." "There's one last modification," Hei-yun said, standing up. She touched the suit's chest, and a small panel opened. Inside was a crystal that pulsed with a soft light. "I saved a piece of the first alien shield we analyzed. It's tuned to your energy signature now. It'll help you feel the flow of power more naturally." Ta Jin looked at her in surprise. "You kept this secret from everyone." "I had to." Her eyes were fierce. "Some things are too important to risk. This isn't just about Earth anymore. This is about you coming back alive." The moment was interrupted by Ta Jin's phone. General Sunho's message was brief. 1 hour. Ta Jin put on the suit, feeling it adjust to his body. The crystal in the chest piece hummed softly, almost like a heartbeat. "Thank you," he said to Hei-yun, "not just for the suit, for believing this was possible." She reached out and straightened the suit's collar, her hands lingering for a moment. "Just remember what you taught me. Understanding beats power." As they left the training room, Ta Jin took one last look at his reflection. The man in the mirror wasn't just a soldier anymore, or even just a martial artist. He was Earth's champion, carrying the hopes of his entire planet. Above them, the alien ships had finished creating the combat arena. It glowed like a ring of fire in the sky, waiting for the battle that would decide Earth's fate. Queen Neri was up there somewhere, probably checking her energy sword, confident in 300 years of victories. She didn't know that her perfect record was about to meet something stronger than power, the lifetime of learning from both victory and defeat that had shaped her human opponent. Ta Jin touched the crystal in his suit one last time and whispered his master's favorite saying, "The strongest warrior is not the one who never falls, but the one who gets up one more time." It was time to show the galaxy how humans fight. The combat arena hung in the sky like a floating island of light. From Earth, it looked like a second moon, glowing with blue and purple energy. A small shuttle carried Ta Jin up through the atmosphere, while He Yun's voice came through his suit's communication system. "Remember, the arena has Earth normal gravity and air," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But the energy field around it might affect your movements slightly. Be careful." The shuttle docked at one end of the arena. When Ta Jin stepped out, he found himself on a circular platform about the size of a soccer field. The floor was made of some kind of clear material that showed the Earth below, while the space above was filled with stars. At the other end of the arena, Queen Neri emerged from her ship. She wore armor that seemed to be made of living metal, shifting and flowing like quicksilver. In her hand, she held what looked like a sword handle. When she pressed a button, a blade of pure purple energy blazed to life. "Welcome, Earth Champion," her voice carried across the arena. "Are you prepared to die with honor?" Ta Jin moved to the center of the platform, his combat suit humming softly. "I'm prepared to fight. Dying isn't part of my plan." The Queen's silver lips curved into a smile. 300 years of combat, and every champion has said something similar. She raised her energy blade. "Their last words are recorded in my ship's archive." Around the arena, floating cameras transmitted the scene to every screen on Earth and across the stellar empire. Billions watched as the two champions faced each other. A deep tone sounded, the signal to begin. Queen Neri moved with incredible speed, her energy blade leaving trails of purple light in the air. She crossed the distance between them in seconds, swinging her weapon in a deadly arc. But Ta Jin wasn't there anymore. He had shifted just enough for the blade to pass by him, his movement so efficient it looked almost lazy. "Stand and fight," the Queen demanded, launching into a series of lightning-fast attacks. Each time, Ta Jin moved just enough to avoid the blade. He didn't attack, didn't defend. He simply wasn't where the Queen's weapon struck. The crystal in his suit pulsed with each movement, helping him feel the flow of energy around him. "Stop dancing and fight." Queen Neri's voice held a note of frustration. She hadn't hit him once, and they both knew it. "I am fighting," Ta Jin said calmly. "I'm learning." The Queen snarled and changed tactics. Her free hand raised, and bolts of energy shot from her armor. Ta Jin finally moved to actively defend, his suit's energy field flaring as he redirected each bolt away from him. One bolt reflected back at the Queen, who had to dodge her own attack. For the first time in 300 years, she took a step backward. "Impossible," she whispered. Then louder, "What kind of fighting style is this?" "One that's thousands of years old," Ta Jin answered. "We call it the way of softness, using an opponent's strength against them." He demonstrated by finally making his first attack. As the Queen thrust her energy blade forward, Ta Jin stepped inside her guard. His hand touched her armor-covered arm, and with a simple turning movement, he used her own momentum to throw her across the platform. Queen Neri landed on her feet, but her eyes were wide with shock. No one had ever touched her in combat, let alone thrown her. "Your power is impressive," Ta Jin said, moving back into a ready stance. "But power isn't everything." The Queen's response was to charge up her energy blade until it blazed like a small sun. "Let's test that theory." She leaped high into the air, her blade coming down in an overhead strike that could cut through a tank. Energy crackled around her like lightning. Ta Jin stood his ground. the crystal in his suit glowing brighter. As the queen descended, time seemed to slow down. All his years of training, all Heiyun's brilliant modifications, all of humanity's fighting spirit, everything focused on this moment. The blade came down, and the real battle began. The queen's energy blade crashed down with enough force to split a mountain. But instead of trying to block it, Ta Jin moved like water. He turned his body slightly, and the blade's energy flowed past him into the arena floor, leaving a glowing crack in the clear surface. For a split second, Queen Neri was off balance, surprised that she had missed. That second was all Ta Jin needed. His hand shot out, touching her arm at a precise point. The crystal in his suit pulsed, and suddenly the queen's energy blade flickered and went dark. "What did you do?" she demanded, jumping back and trying to reignite her weapon. "Your energy flows like a river," Ta Jin explained, moving into a ready stance. "I just helped it find a new path." In the command center on Earth, Heiyun watched the readings from Ta Jin's suit with growing excitement. "He's doing it," she told General Sunho. "He's using the crystal to disrupt her energy patterns." The queen's face showed anger for the first time. Her armor began to glow brighter, power building up around her like a storm. "You think understanding energy is enough? I have the power of 1,000 suns at my command." She raised both hands, and the air itself seemed to bend. Purple lightning crackled around her, and her eyes blazed like stars gone nova. The attack that followed wasn't just one strike, it was hundreds, energy bolts firing from every part of her armor at once. But something strange happened. As the energy bolts reached Ta Jin, they began to spiral around him instead of hitting him. The crystal in his suit glowed brighter and brighter, and his movements became a fluid dance. "Impossible," Queen Neri shouted. "No one can redirect this much power." "You're right," Ta Jin said calmly, still moving through his circular pattern. "That's why I'm not redirecting it. I'm helping it flow where it wants to go." The spiraling energy began to form a pattern in the air, like a glowing river circling Ta Jin. With each movement, he added to the flow, guided it, shaped it. The crystal pulsed in time with his heartbeat. In the command center, Heiyun's screens were filled with readings she had never seen before. "The suit is acting like a conductor," she whispered. "He's not fighting the energy. He's becoming part of its natural flow." Queen Neri poured more power into her attack, her armor blazing so bright it hurt to look at. But the more energy she released, the stronger the flowing pattern around Ta Jin became. Then, with a movement as simple as a wave of his hand, Ta Jin sent all that gathered energy flowing back toward the queen, not as an attack, but as a gentle, irresistible tide. The queen tried to defend, but she had never learned how to deal with her own power being turned against her. The energy wave lifted her off her feet and pulled her toward Ta Jin. He caught her with one hand, just like he had caught falling students in his training hall thousands of times. The queen's armor sparked and went dark, its power completely drained. For a moment, they stood there in perfect balance, the human warrior and the alien queen, connected by the flowing energy that still sparkled in the air around them. "How?" Queen Neri asked, her voice barely a whisper. "All that power." "Power isn't about strength," Ta Jin said softly, remembering his master's words. "It's about understanding. Your energy weapons, your advanced technology, they're all just different forms of the same universal flow. Once you understand that, you don't need to be stronger, you just need to be in harmony." He helped her regain her feet and stepped back. The queen stood there, her armor dark and quiet for the first time in 300 years. She looked at Ta Jin with new eyes, seeing not just a human warrior, but someone who had shown her a completely new way of thinking about combat. Around them, the arena hummed with leftover energy. Below, the earth continued its peaceful spin through space, and in that moment, both champions knew that everything had changed. The queen had lost for the first time in 3 centuries, but somehow, As she looked at the human who had taught her more in one battle than she had learned in 300 years of victories, it didn't feel like defeat. It felt like awakening. The arena fell silent as Queen Neri picked up her deactivated energy blade. She looked at it for a long moment, then did something that shocked everyone watching across two civilizations. She bowed to Ta Jin. "In 300 years," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the still air, "no one has ever shown me the limits of my understanding." She straightened up and smiled, not the mocking smile from before, but a genuine one. "Earth has won. More than that, Earth has taught." The cheering started in Seoul first, then spread across the planet like a wave. In the command center, Hae-yeon collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face. General Sunho was already on the phone with world leaders, his usual stern expression replaced by a broad grin. But up in the arena, Ta Jin and the Queen weren't finished talking. "Your combat suit," Queen Neri said, gesturing at the softly glowing crystal. "It's remarkable not for its power, but for its simplicity." "Who designed it?" "Hae-yeon," Ta Jin replied. "She understood that copying your technology wasn't the answer. We needed to understand it instead." The Queen nodded. "We have forgotten much, I think. In our quest for power, we lost touch with the basic truths your people still remember." She touched her armor thoughtfully. "Perhaps it is time for the Stellar Empire to learn some new lessons, or rather, some very old ones." A shuttle arrived to take them back to Earth. As they descended through the atmosphere, Queen Neri looked out at the planet with new eyes. "Your world is beautiful," she said. "So much variety, so much life. We saw it as primitive, but now I understand. You have preserved something we lost. The balance between progress and wisdom." They landed at the Seoul Military Command Center, where a crowd had gathered. Hae-yeon broke through the security line and ran to meet them. She stopped short when she saw Queen Neri, unsure of protocol. The Queen solved the problem by stepping forward and bowing to Hae-yeon. "The warrior who fights with mind and spirit is matched by the scientist who builds with heart and understanding. I would very much like to learn from you both." Hae-yeon blushed but managed to bow back. "We have much to learn from you too, Your Majesty." General Sunho approached with a group of world leaders. "Queen Neri, according to the terms of the challenge, your forces will leave our solar system." The terms were clear, the Queen agreed. "But I would like to propose a different path forward." She looked at the gathered crowd. "Instead of leaving, we could stay. Not as conquerors, but as allies. Partners in learning and growth." The general looked surprised. "You would do this? After losing a battle?" Queen Neri laughed, but this time it was a warm sound, free of mockery. "I lost a battle that gained wisdom. In all our conquests, we never found a civilization that could teach us something new. Until now." She turned to Ta Jin. "Your fighting style shows the perfect balance of old wisdom and new techniques. This is what the Stellar Empire needs. Will you teach us?" Ta Jin looked at Hae-yeon, who nodded encouragingly. "We would be honored," he said, "but teaching goes both ways. We have much to learn from you as well." The next few hours were a blur of meetings, declarations, and celebrations. News channels worldwide showed scenes of alien ships peacefully landing, their crews emerging to meet Earth's people not as conquerors but as friends. In the evening, Ta Jin found himself back in his old training hall with Hae-yeon. The combat suit was safely stored away, but the crystal still sat on a small table, glowing softly. "Did you ever think," Hae-yeon asked, "when they first appeared in our sky, that it would end like this?" Ta Jin smiled. "No, but my master always said the best victories are the ones where both sides win something valuable." Outside, the stars shone brightly in the sky, mixed now with the gentle lights of alien ships. Earth had gained powerful allies, the Stellar Empire had found new wisdom, and two civilizations had learned that true strength comes in many forms. And somewhere up there, Queen Neri was already planning her first martial arts lesson. 1 year after the Great Battle, the Seoul Training Academy opened its doors. The building was a perfect blend of Earth architecture and alien technology, with traditional wooden floors alongside floating platforms and energy fields. Ta Jin stood at the entrance, watching as students from both worlds filed in. Human military personnel walked beside alien warriors, all wearing the same simple training clothes. The sight still amazed him every day. "Ready for another class?" Hye-yeon asked, walking up beside him. She wore her usual lab coat, but now it had both Earth military patches and Stellar Empire insignia. The crystal from the combat suit had been replicated and improved, and she wore one as a pendant, a symbol of her role as Chief Technology Advisor for the Alliance. Always, Ta Jin smiled. Queen Neri is teaching the Advanced Energy Control class today. Inside the main training hall, Queen Neri was demonstrating to a mixed group of humans and aliens how to channel energy without relying on weapons or armor. Her own fighting style had changed dramatically over the past year, becoming more fluid and natural. "Remember," she told her students, "power flows like a river. Don't try to control it. Understand it, guide it, become one with it." She caught Ta Jin's eye and grinned. "My old self would never believe I'd be saying those words." The changes went far beyond fighting styles. In orbit above Earth, ships from both civilizations worked together on joint projects. The Stellar Empire's advanced technology, combined with Earth's fresh perspectives and ancient wisdom, had led to breakthroughs that benefited everyone. Hye-yeon's laboratory had become a hub of innovation. She worked with alien scientists to develop new technologies that focused on harmony and understanding rather than raw power. Their latest project was a system of energy shields that protected planets from natural disasters by working with natural forces instead of against them. During lunch break, Ta Jin sat with Queen Neri in the Academy's garden. She had made it a point to experience as much of Earth's culture as possible, and she had developed a particular love for Korean tea ceremonies. "Do you remember," she asked, carefully pouring tea in the traditional way, "when I first arrived and laughed at Earth's fighters?" "Hard to forget," Ta Jin replied, accepting the cup with a small bow. "You were quite confident." "I was ignorant," she corrected, but with a smile. "I thought I knew everything about combat because I had never lost. Now I understand that losing that battle was my greatest victory." Their conversation was interrupted by a young alien student rushing up to them. "Your Majesty, Master Ta Jin, the first graduation ceremony is about to begin." They walked to the main courtyard, where rows of students, human and alien, stood in their training uniforms. Each wore a crystal like the one that had helped win the battle a year ago, but these were more than just tools now. They were symbols of the new path both civilizations had chosen. General Sunho, now the Earth representative to the Stellar Alliance Council, gave a short speech. "1 year ago, we faced each other as enemies. Today, we stand together as friends, partners, and fellow students of a better way." Hye-yeon joined them on the stage, carrying a box of graduation badges she had designed herself. Each one combined Korean martial arts, symbols with Stellar Empire energy patterns in a perfect circle, a sign of harmony and endless learning. As Queen Neri helped pin the badges on each graduate, she spoke quietly to Ta Jin. "The Stellar Empire used to measure its success by the worlds it conquered. Now we measure it by the wisdom we share and the understanding we achieve." After the ceremony, Ta Jin found himself back in his old training room. The mirrors still showed the same reflection, but now they showed so much more too. The future of two civilizations learning and growing together. Hye-yeon found him there, just as she had before the great battle. But this time, instead of worry in her eyes, there was joy and purpose. "The next batch of students arrives tomorrow," she said, "and I've just finished the plans for 3 more training academies across Earth." Ta Jin nodded, looking out the window at the mixed group of humans and aliens leaving the graduation ceremony. Some were talking about combat techniques, others about science and technology, but all were sharing and learning from each other. My old master would be proud, he said. He always told me that the greatest victory is the one that makes everyone stronger. Above them, Earth's sky had never looked more beautiful, filled with stars and ships and endless possibilities. The queen who had once laughed at human fighters now taught their wisdom to her own people.